Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. I'm Alex Whiteley. Of course it is. Who else would it be? Well, maybe Shane, Jules, I don't know. But hey, we're at the castle today, or the Regimental Museum. I just got to let you know, as we're setting up, there's a bit of a... You know how when your phone would go off, you get a text and your TV would go beep, 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 make a weird noise. It's kind of what I'm getting through the audio at the moment, so it may be a bit difficult to edit this back, but hopefully not. We're at the Regimental Museum today in the castle. I've been dying to sort of do interviews here for a while now, and we're finally here. We're sat in. First of all, I'll introduce you to my guest, Lauren. Thank you very much for joining me.
No problem.
I wrote to you, and you're like, "Yeah, let's do this," because we were just talking in the office about how the world's changing and how content can help places, your community and stuff. And so is that why this has happened in such a quick speed? Do you know what I mean? Like with the biscuit coming here today, you think?
Yeah, well, we've wanted to do something with you guys for ages. We've been following you on social media, and we're always looking for ways to reach out in a more digital way. So this is great. And obviously, the more people in the community we can engage with, the better.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it, and the sentiment is very important, because I feel like society. That makes me sound. Yes, all of you folk in society. I feel like people are sort of welcoming content creation a bit more readily now.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's correct to say, isn't it? Because there's me, there's Brendan James, there's a few other podcasters out there going out there and showing people what their community is all about. What room are we in, by the way? It's just to explain to our listeners. We just did it on the vlog, but that's different.
We're in the Mayor's Parlour at the moment, so this is the room where the Mayor will entertain their guests for afternoon tea parties. If people are having awards, they'll get meetings, I suppose, conversations with the Mayor in here. And I think it really dates back to when the castle was used as the Borough Council chambers, so it's the link with the Mayor comes from there, I believe.
So I mean, I won a Mayor's Award last year. I won a Mayor's Award. So this is the room I probably would have come up to collect that from Mayor Phil Gillam. Sorry, Mayor Julian Green, we're using your room today, if you don't mind.
Borrowing.
And the reason I wanted to come here today isn't necessarily to talk about history, because of course the history is seaming through these walls. I did an audio tour, the So Stories. Make sure you go to Original Shrewsbury website, guys, and look for So Stories. They're on Podbean. And I did an audio tour here with historian, architect. I always did that. Well, it's not an architect. He's an archaeologist. I get his words mixed up. He's an architect, and he did the dig out on the lawn there twice, I believe. Anyway, we did an audio tour with him, and the history is fascinating. And I don't want to go too much about that, because, guys, if you want to learn about most of it, you have to come and have a look, right?
Yeah,
but I want to talk about this place, how it runs, and how you guys deal with your day-to-day and what it's like. Do you want to explain sort of your entry and how you started working at the prison? At the prison. That's because I'm going to the prison later. Oh my God, my head's up my backside today. The castle. How did you start here?
Yeah, so I came in under the Kickstart scheme in March. I'm officially a collections assistant, but I deal with the digital engagement side of things. So a large part of that was because of COVID. We were in lockdown, so it was a way to get the collections and their stories online, so people could feel that they were getting an experience without being able to come through the doors. So that's mostly what I do, and now that is partly engagement within the museum as well, now that people are allowed in. So I run the social media, I upload stuff to the website. We've recently redeveloped the regimental histories on there. So that's my main role, really, the digital side of things, and then just getting the collections out there so people can see that, we've got a museum full of objects, but there's stories behind each of those, and without the stories, there's no museum.
How interesting. Fascinating, in fact, actually. So originally you came for a smaller role, and now you've picked up another role because you're talented with social media and spreading the word virtually. Yeah,
so I think the main idea in my role initially was to get things online so people could see them, but within that I've developed it so that there's regular features for people to engage with, and it's just a natural progression, really. It just spreads further and further afield until redeveloping the whole website, really.
Well, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, isn't it? Because this place is very photographic.
Yeah.
There's so much content you could make here. And, I was talking to in the office and we were talking about how, people from outside of Shrewsbury, even people inside of Shrewsbury may never been here, will come here and just take hundreds, if not thousands of photos, videos, might make their own little vlogs to put on their own YouTube stuff, So the fact that, that does it itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That ticks over nicely, I guess. But during lockdown, you couldn't have done that. So,
yeah. And it's about getting the stories out that people wouldn't see necessarily just from seeing the objects on display. So, for example, we've got a painting in the main hall that was done by a previous curator's brother, who then went on to design the costumes for Darth Vader and someone else from Star Wars. I can't remember the name, but yeah, he was the costume designer for Star Wars, and we've got one of his paintings in the hall. But you wouldn't know that from the display. So those stories are stuff we just really want to get out there.
That's an amazing story. In fact, my very famous artist friend that I do a podcast with might be interested in seeing a picture of that. I'll have to have a look at that later. He's in Florida though, so he can't come and pay tuition. But that actually brings up an important point.
Yeah.
He's in Florida. He can't come and see that artwork. And I know you kind of do want to encourage people to come into Shrewsbury and stuff, but we can't travel restrictions and stuff at the moment. So I think, doing the virtual always has a place. It's not quite the same. We've done interviews virtual. I like doing them like this because the chemistry that we have when we're doing this, whoever I'm speaking to, oozes through the audio, So the virtual side of things is very important. How's it been as a journey for you? I bet you've learned loads, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, loads. Obviously, as a young person, I use social media, but using it for a professional organisation, I suppose you'd say, is completely different. So you just learn about the even just the time to put a post out to get the most engagement is something that took some time to learn. And then it's just getting to grips with what people want to see and how it can be put out in the most engaging way, really. There's just so much to learn with it, and I'm still learning. Yeah. Excuse me. It's just, there's just so many directions you can go with digital things. You sort of have to rein yourself in with some areas, and then people want more and more. On Facebook, for example.
Less is more, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
You could put a picture up. Captions are like the hardest thing for me, especially when it comes to, writing a mini blurb about a podcast. I hate that so much. I hate it. I really do, because it's like, you've got to explain what's on this episode in as little words as possible and not write an essay. We've been asked to do bios for all of us that are taking part in Pod Aid, the charity event we're doing in September. Rachel were like, we could do some pictures and some bios about all the hosts. And I was like, okay. So I wrote 2 paragraphs because I'm used to this stuff. I asked Shane, send a picture. Shane's my co-host. I asked him, quick couple of paragraphs about yourself. He sent like 6 paragraphs. I was like, oh my God, it comes in chapters.
Well, this is it. Yeah, having to cut it down is a whole day in itself.
But then you got the problem of you've got to be accurate too.
Yeah.
Right? That's not easy.
No. Especially, I don't come from a military history background, so getting stuff so it's concise and factual and engaging is a whole journey in itself to learn about. But yeah.
It's a museum at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah.
Somebody turned around and be like, well, the museum got the facts wrong. In fact, I remember we went around Cosford and there was this downstairs, there was this thing about South America, and they spelt Colombia wrong. My wife is from Colombia, by the way, okay? And they spelt Colombia Columb, like the American Columbia. Yeah. So we wrote to them, wrote to Cosford, and we were like, guys, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You're a museum. And I was one of those guys that complained, but my wife was like, why do people always spell my country wrung? You know?
That's it.
And they've changed it since.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. They know better for next time.
How are you dealing with that though? There's a high expectations of you now to get it right.
Yeah.
Have you got it wrong, and how have you dealt with it if you have?
I guess there are high expectations, but at the same time, people mostly know that behind the screen it's an individual that's put that out there, so nice. Human error. But there's been times when, for example, there was a Facebook post I did recently about something to do with the First World War uniforms that got issued, and there was just a slight error in it, and someone pointed it out, but then we just rectify it and thank them for helping us, because at the end of the day, if they hadn't said it, I wouldn't have seen it. So
nice.
It's good for people to point it out, but yeah,
you need that feedback sometimes. If someone was like, Al, your mics were way too sensitive on the last episode, and nobody told me. I would have known.
Well, exactly, that's it, isn't it? Yeah.
And, when it comes to these stories, some of these are very hyper-local, right? I mean, some of these things, have you had people come here and be like, that was my unit? Have you ever people like share stories that are, sort of intimate to them with you?
Oh, yeah, all the time. We get people coming in whose dad, granddad, uncle were part of the King's Shropshire Light Infantry and they want to see their medals, or we get people coming in and tell us something we didn't know about, something that happened in the regiment. So there's people all the time. People message us on Facebook to say their dad was in the Shropshire Yeomanry and they've got all this stuff that they don't know what to do with. Can we have it? And there's just loads of areas that we still don't know about that people keep pointing out to us. So it's just a growing thing, really.
I remember I grew up in Wrexham, and I remember reading a story for this guy had like Lee Enfield rifles stacked on his wall from when he was like in the army. He just somehow managed to keep his rifles, and so the police had to turn up and seize them. In the end, they ended up in like a museum like this. But people, that happens. That happens. It's crazy.
Well, we've got a rifle downstairs that was owned by a Victoria Cross winner that wasn't known about until he died. It was found underneath his bed with all this ammunition next to it. So yeah, there's people that have stuff that no one knows about that just gets found one day.
Amazing. What's this place like to work in then? Is it creepy? Is it nice? What's the feeling like here?
I'd say there's been no creepy goings on so far.
Is there any like sort of haunting? I guess the prison is known as one of the most haunted buildings in the UK. People. I mean, most haunted go there at least once a month. You know what I mean? So this place, has that got a reputation for anything like that? We're not that kind of show, by the way, guys. We're really not.
Yeah, ghost tours. No, as far as I know, there's nothing reported in the castle. Apparently, I don't know how true it is, but within the grounds, there's a headless man, I think. But again, I don't know how true that is. But in terms of the castle itself, no, it's quite a friendly vibe so far, anyway.
But I mean, I was talking to you as we were walking through the hall. That this, it's the third time I've been here, and I always feel nice here. I feel calm. I feel relaxed. I love the smell of the wood downstairs. And it's a weird thing to say, but like it's just got a nice aura about it, And this is really nice. So, what is the Kickstart? What is Kickstart? How did you get up on that?
Oh, so it's people aged 16 to 24 who aren't in employment and are on universal credit, so they can be recommended. Jobs put a position out there, and then it's not advertised publicly, so you have to be within those categories, and it will be recommended to you.
Okay.
And then you apply to it as you would a normal job. Then you get interviewed, and then once you've been recommended it's the same process as it would be for any job. It's just you have to fit into those categories to get it. But I came straight from doing my masters. It ended during COVID, so then getting a job was not easy. So that's how I ended up here, really. That's
really nice. It's the system getting things right, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And look where you are now. You're doing this. Has this inspired you to go on and do more things in this role, or are you happy here for now? I mean, it's
definitely opened my eyes to the digital side of things. I found that I really do enjoy it because I did my masters in heritage, so museums and the heritage sector is what I've always wanted to go into, but I never really considered the digital side. I just thought I want to be in amongst it, if that makes sense. But social media and the even PR. I've not done much PR at all, really. But that side of things is something that I'd never really considered. But there's just so many directions that you can go in with it. It's really opened my eyes to it.
It really is an important thing, because when you think about people that are further away and stuff, you are inspiring people. There might be people that live in Australia that had a member of family in a unit that was Shropshire based, and they may see something online that'd be like, oh my God, that was my dad's unit. Things like that are very, very inspirational for people. And we've seen this movement of like virtual events during COVID, then the hybrid events when things sort of relax, and then the folk festival, for example, in Shrewsbury was they opened the doors fully this year, but they kept the live stream going as well. Yeah. Which is like they kind of learned that why don't we show people around the world what's going on here, because it's free advertisement, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, our talks program, we do a mostly monthly lecture series. And that was in person before COVID, but that went to on Zoom during COVID.
Tell me about that.
So we have someone is what would you call them? They lead the talk, the spokesperson maybe.
Okay.
They lead the lecture each month, and they have a certain topic that they're going to talk about. So one of the ones previously was about the Queen's Gallantry Medal. So it can be really, really specific, but you get people that are interested in that and wouldn't otherwise have anywhere to go to learn more about it. So that's each month we do that. And as I say, it was in the castle before COVID, but that went on to Zoom. So the charge was dropped, it was free, but donations were encouraged. But we were getting people as far away as Turkey joining onto the talks because suddenly they didn't have to have a way to get into the castle. They could watch it from anywhere. That is now back in the castle. So we've got one next Friday that's back.
How do people get involved with that then? Is it very limited tickets? Can people buy tickets online?
Yeah, so they can be booked via our website. I believe with COVID at the moment, the numbers will be slightly limited compared to usual with it being back in the castle. But we're looking at ways to live stream it as well so that we can have the best of both worlds, really.
There you go. Yeah.
And if it is in the castle, you get wine and nibbles, so there's that benefit to it. But it's just ways to sort of have people back enjoying being out in the world, but also online for those that can't really.
Well, it adds context to what you're looking at, isn't it? You know, you could look at a medal and go, oh, it's a medal. But if you've got a guy going, well, actually, no, the colours on that ribbon mean that they're in this part of the country and the 3 bars on it mean they've done 3 campaigns, blah, blah. You know,
exactly.
If someone can sit and explain that to someone and they learn, I mean, this keeps history alive, doesn't it?
Exactly.
I talk so much about how important heritage is and history and how, you know, it really is important to keep this going because things get forgotten about. You know, and when you talk about stories about, you know, locals and how this place or objects in this place has affected people, you got to keep those things going because, you know, eventually those stories will disappear. We had this idea for, I think, Shane's idea. He rang me up at 4:00 in the morning going, Al, I've got this amazing idea. Memoirs of a Salopia. Let's speak to the silver generation and talk about where they went to work and what the pubs are drinking and all this sort of stuff. And I thought, that's an amazing idea.
Yeah.
I still haven't done it.
One day
when I get time. I mean, I'm just such a busy guy, you know? But now this place is amazing, and it does have a great vibe, and I'm glad the castle, the museum is moving into a more modern era with social media and the virtual aspect of things. Have you, you know, the more you've done this, has it got easier? Or, you know, if you learn new skills that make things easier? Learn how to professionally cut corners, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I suppose there's still areas that as a small not-for-profit organisation, we haven't got the funding that a national museum would, for example. Yeah. So there's certain areas of digital media we can't even think about going down because... You need
AR and stuff like that.
Exactly, exactly. The resources, we just haven't got them. But yeah, I mean, there's ways that we can get digital promotion out there with cutting a few corners here and there without needing the funding. We'll go down. So, for example, we'll have other people promote us because we've promoted an event they've got, for example. So it's
like the Up All Night thing that they had in the lawn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot to learn still, but there's skills about what people want and how you can sort of not trick them into engaging with it, but you just appeal to that that thing they like, and then suddenly you've got them, really.
It just starts at sort of, when you're dealing with like social media content creation, those sort of things, it does feel like you're trying to trick people. You gotta sell it within the first 10 seconds, otherwise they're going to switch off. You know, you learn all these things, and my vlogs are all very, very much the same. Like, we did the food festival, and it literally was, because like they had the Dirty Rockin' Scoundrels play, and they played the driving festival that Beth did, and it ended with the Dirty Rockin' Scoundrels and me playing pictures over them playing. The food festival ended with the Dirty Rockin' Scoundrels and me playing pictures over me.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah.
Whatever works for you. Whatever works for you. So what's next for the castle? Is there anything coming up that you're working on at the moment that you would like to tell listeners about?
Coming up, we've got I suppose the next busy period for us will be October half term. We hope to get more of the families through again. We'll hopefully get some activities going on with that. Nothing set in stone so far, but
You should get some soldiers dressed up, walking around, Bliss Tale style,
Yeah, well, that's it. We before COVID, there would be people doing demonstrations and what have you in the grounds, but obviously that's been pushed back because of all the restrictions. But we've not got any. We've got the talks programs that are still going ahead that can be found on the website. They're paid for, but if you're a friend of the museum, they're slightly cheaper. And then we've got the half-term activities, which hopefully we'll organise soon. But apart from that, just plodding on, doing the best we can.
If you're from outside of Shrewsbury and you don't really come here that often, you listen to Shrewsbury Biscuit. Well, thank you first of all.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you've never come, like during the summer, I know we're coming towards autumn now, but the grounds here are very delightful. And in fact, like during the first sort of lockdown when things started opening up again, you had the picnic thing where people could turn up for picnics, and there was the music and the up all night stuff that you had here before. It's a very pleasant place to come. And also, I will revert back to what I was talking about with you guys in the office earlier.
Yeah.
Is David Waterhouse, who came onto my show, it was the Iron Festival 2 years ago. And he was like, I'm not going to do an impression of him. David, I'm very sorry, but... and he was like, when's the last time you went to a museum? And I was kind of like, about 18 months ago. And he's like, well, you should bloody well go to a museum. And he had a right go at me. And it's true. I mean, these things have significant relevance as to what goes on around you in your town, especially the Shrewsbury Museum, an art gallery, and this one here as well. There are so many stories to be learned, and the kids, they need to see this stuff. And there's a special artifact I want to show my American listeners, which we will talk about in a sec, which is there's a flag from the original White House that was burned down by the British, right? And the flag is here. It's here in the building, right? Yeah,
it is. We've got that and the colours of the American Army from the same battle that were also brought back to us. The colours of the American colours aren't that clear anymore because of the fire damage and the age. But we've got them. They're on display.
Amazing. I mean, Tom Bruno, he's not going to listen to this. He doesn't listen to the You Suck stuff we make. Never mind the biscuit stuff. But I mean, if you do listen to this, I mean, I'm just saying. It's just it's here, man. Well, thank you so much for chatting to me. I mean, I think it's fascinating learning about you, the quick start thing. Yeah. Learning the fact that you came here during COVID, that you had to learn how to do things virtually, then hybrid style. Now you're trying to incorporate that into it is very fascinating because this is like a very important time, I feel, for us as in society.
Definitely.
Coming out of a pandemic. What's the biggest challenges working here for you?
I suppose the biggest challenge would be that there's always something new to learn. Because, as I said, I'm not from military history background, so there's always a lot to learn. I don't think I'll ever know everything.
It's learning numbers and of regiments and the regiments themselves. That
the dates, the involvements, what different ranks are, what the different medals mean, what rank you'd have to be to get a certain medal. There's just so much.
Well, those are the things that people go to university for.
Yeah,
you want me to learn it in 6 weeks? What you know?
Exactly. I'm always talking to the warders and they're always teaching me something new because a lot of them are from military backgrounds. So they're happy to teach me and I'm happy to listen because they know more than me.
And what do you love the most about working here? What makes it easier for you to get up in the morning and come here?
I think it's just being surrounded by the history of it because I did a history degree at uni, so obviously history is what I like, but it's just the fact that there's so much around to engage with, and there's also people that work here that are so happy to talk about it, and they obviously enjoy what they do, which, it passes over, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a brilliant answer because, history is something that, I mean, I was speaking to, we covered the Battle of Shrewsbury, and, I was talking to a teacher, I forgot his name. Is it Harry or James? Anyway, he was telling me about that there were in school, there were some kids that didn't quite understand what World War II was. And I was like, that's a lie.
Really?
That's not true. And he was like, no, that's absolutely true.
Oh, my word.
There are kids that struggle with that. So The fact that we got a young person here that appreciates history means that there's faith. We can do this. We can carry on.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you tell people how to virtually follow the museum here and how they can keep in touch with everything that's going on? Let's talk about people that can't get to the castle. How can they get involved?
Yeah, so we have regular updates on our Soldiers of Shropshire Museum Facebook, or Instagram is at Soldiers of Shropshire Museum. Twitter, I believe, is still Shropshire Regimental Museum, which was our old name.
Nobody cares about Twitter, that's fine.
Exactly, yeah. It is the lesser, the little one that gets
Unless you want to talk about politics or whine about
something. Exactly. Or we also have the Soldiers of Shropshire Museum website, which has the links to the social medias on as well, and the new regimental histories we've just put up there with the help of a research volunteer, which was a long process, and I did get a little bit stressed with it, but we got there in the end. So yeah, that's worth a look.
Projects that stress you out completely and you lose sleep about it. I don't know what that's like. Tell me about it, please. We have this idea, listeners, by the way, if you're listening to this, write into me and let me know what you think about it, right? Because I have this idea for Matthew Howarth, who did the Battle of Shrewsbury. And if you're into your history, and you'll know Matthew. And we had this idea of doing a podcast for history, a history podcast. But I didn't want to history podcasts have done to death. They're done to death, absolutely. But we want to do something for adults. Adults like me that are learning about history as we go along, right? So we wanted to do a sort of a mixture between horrible histories and drunk history, which if you've watched TV, you'll know what that is. So we wanted to do like a history podcast where we can go places, not just in Shropshire, we can go anywhere, but we can throw in a few swears and talk a bit more about the gory side of things, and make it more palatable for the average adult. What are your thoughts about this? Because history, when it comes to history, there is a certain style usually of doing it. And I feel like if we can almost, I'm not going to say treat the listeners like children, but offer it as something fun instead, maybe people might be interested. What do you think?
Well, I think it's true, because there is, with history, it's either presented as a children's topic or an academic topic where you've got to find the middle ground, really. And I think, especially these days, that's the best way to go with it, with podcasts and really information that's just really easy to digest but keeps you wanting to learn more, rather than just your basic World War II ended in 1945, that's it. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
I'm reading the letters from soldiers that, you include the swears and the gore and stuff, and I know a lot of history. If you've ever seen World War II documentaries, a lot of that stuff's kept in anyway. But as a podcast, somewhere where we can casually just sit and talk to curators of museums from up and down the country, and we can talk about these things in absolute, just free, uncensored, kind of let's go with it. I think that's an amazing idea. Guys, let us know on Facebook if you really do think that's a good idea, if you'd like to get involved with it. Obviously, it can't be part of the Biscuit because the Biscuit's family friendly, but we might do something separate. So yeah, so it's an idea. It's an idea.
For sure.
So, thank you very much for chatting to me, Lauren, and thank you for setting this up today. I know we're going to do another interview, I think, at some point. So thank you for setting me up in the mayor's room. Honestly, I'm so blown away by this place. It's really good. Thank you very much.
No, thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Hey guys, and we're still at the castle. Lauren's still here, but we were joined by Richard. What's your role here, Richard, at the castle?
I'm the director of the museum, Soldiers of Shropshire Museum.
Yeah.
When I started nearly 3 years ago now, it was still called the Shropshire Regimental Museum.
Yeah.
And one of the first things I did in September 2019 was oversee the change of name to Soldiers of Shropshire to become a more inclusive and a bit more forward-looking museum.
How come? How come the change of name?
I think the name of a regimental museum or a county museum had kind of lost its meaning amongst our visitors, our audience, and calling a museum Soldiers of Shropshire as opposed to a regimental museum had a bit more resonance with the actual soldiers, veterans, and families themselves.
It's very good. It's very good.
We weren't the first to do it. There have been a couple of others that have done it, but I think it was a point when a lot of military museums and regimental museums were looking at their purpose and their audience and working out how to become a little more relevant and how to sort of bridge the gap between the sort of the aging population who had a lot of knowledge and contact with our army, and the younger generations who increasingly have less and less. So it was a way of doing that.
Do you feel like was there a bit of pullback from that? Was there a lot of you can't change the name of the museum, or what was that like?
We've had a few comments about it. One was that I had quite recently was from one of our long-standing supporters. It said it sounds like you have a museum that has its own soldiers, as in the Shropshire Museum. These are the soldiers of the Shropshire Museum, which was a bit odd. I'd never looked at it like that before. That could be a thing. That could be a thing we do in the future. We'll raise our own army.
Well, I was saying this to Lauren. I said you should definitely have Bliss Hill have people dressed up. You should have people walking around with soldiers' uniforms and stuff. Yeah. The kids would love that.
I haven't written it off just yet. In fact, our learning.
I'll do it.
Our learning.
There we go. Sorted.
Right. Lauren, you don't fancy that? Maybe. Our learning program that stalled at the beginning of COVID that has an element of that where a reenactor or an actor dresses in First World War uniform and talks to the young people about his experiences in the trenches, as to bring a book to life, a fiction book to life with them. So it can be really powerful in the right setting. I think it can really work. I don't think I won't be putting on a trench coat just yet.
Well, I mean, we were at the Battle of Shrewsbury weekend, and Matthew Howarth was heading that up, and I got a new man crush on Matthew Howarth. I think he's amazing. I think he's good at what he does, and it does, because I'm not of a history background. I'm not an academic when it comes to history. I like, when it comes to World War II, I'm very obsessed. I will watch it again. And if I see one of a series of documentaries on World War II, I'll have to watch the whole lot. I love it. But he seen people dressed up at the Battle of Shrewsbury with their armour and things. It really brings it to life. And you're talking about bridging the gap between sort of the older generation and the new generation. There's something there, isn't there? That, I mean, when you go to Bliss Hill, I also remember the first time I went to Bliss Hill, going to that bank, changing my money. And I'm sorry to advertise another museum at your museum, but it just adds something real special to it. So maybe an idea for the future. So how the challenges when you first started here? What were they? What was it like first coming through the doors here? This is your job now.
I think the biggest challenge, and the challenge that's really come to light over the last 18 months, is maintaining sort of forward motion.
Yes.
When everything else stops, how do you keep your presence, and how do you keep yourselves in the public eye? How do you keep people interested in what you do? So keeping that forward motion takes the most enormous amount of energy. And most of our time is, what do we do next? What do we do next? What do we do next? And there's always been a pressure across the whole of the heritage and museum sector, excuse me, to do more and to do new and to do lots and to do it at huge pace. And throughout my career in the sector, everything has been relentless. And
so you want people to keep coming back? You want people to be like, oh, I've seen it.
I think we definitely need to upgrade our offer. It's quite a static museum as it is. I mean, it's got some real gems, and our collections are the most rich and deep and broad collection. I mean, it's one of the most comprehensive regimental collections in the country.
Amazing.
And so we use that as something to draw from. There's always some other story to pull out of that, but it's been quite a static display for some time. I'd love to be able to very soon start redisplaying the collections in a way that has a bit more relevance, or that highlights different stories, or that makes it easier to find the plight and the lives of the soldiers, as opposed to just focusing on the history. And museums, traditionally, I think people see museums, this is just a history lesson told in objects and dates, and you need knowledge to go in. But actually, for me, museums are about stories about people.
Yes.
Yes, we do have the stuff to back some of it up, and we do have the stuff to illustrate it. But when people have access on their phones and tablets and everything else, they have access to the most incredible amount of information now, and that's how they choose to find their historical facts. We've got to go one better. We've got to get them emotionally attracted and invested in our stories, and I think we can do that very powerfully by displaying our collections in a more meaningful way, and something that breaks down that barrier between our our society and our communities and our army.
I mean, it's a very important job. I mean, like you said, we've got these devices in our pockets, the most powerful thing you'll ever have. I mean, we've got to try and get kids learning about history and things rather than watching Logan Paul drive a jet ski in a pool in his garden. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many things that you could do with this device in your pocket and learn about. And trying to do that is difficult. I mean, so I've got a 6-year-old, and we were just talking about in the office that, when I was a kid, I used to get up and watch cartoons, right? And he sits there and he watches his tablet, and YouTube and stuff. And he likes history though, so I'm kind of lucky. He's kind of really interested by it. But what tactics have you used to try and generate some interest when it comes to the youth, especially the locals? I mean, there's probably some stubborn locals here that have never even been here before.
I think it's always the way. When I lived in London many years ago, and as I moved down, I thought, brilliant, I'll be able to go to all the museums and all the galleries and all the shows and theatres and everything. There's just too much
do
choice.
All in one weekend.
And exactly. And then after about 3, 4, 5 years, I just admitted to myself that it probably wasn't going to happen. It's one of those things that when things are close to you, you always think, oh, I'll go and do that next week. It's always going to be there. I think, sadly, unless people start visiting museums and heritage attractions more, they're not always going to be here.
Yeah.
We've looked at ways of engaging, like I mentioned earlier, our learning programme. Mm-hmm. We responded with our local museum development team to a survey that was carried out in schools in 2017, where they said, we're not going to museums anymore because they don't offer us anything extra than the sort of the basis that we can teach in the classroom. And so they sort of set up a scheme and did some thinking about much more active learning and participatory learning in museums. And the scheme was called A Call to Adventure. So it very much plays on the idea that we can, as museums, if we just make a bit more effort, we can have extraordinary school visits and an extraordinary learning experience.
Yes.
So we put together immersive narrative, it's called, and a cross-curricular learning programme. We got it in place. We did 2 trial runs with the local school, a school in Colham. We went back
my kid's school.
in the first. After the first trial, we went back after about 5-6 weeks, so it was quite a time. But the kids had recalled the most incredible detail from their visit. Facts, numbers, dates, names, all sorts. And I think that's testament to a much more active learning environment where the kids are on a bit more of a quest for the information, and they have to work a little harder to uncover what's in the collections. And so, with those 2 trials under our belt, we've worked now with the education team at the museums in Shropshire Council, and if it hadn't been for COVID, I was hoping we would have had 4 or 5 school visits a week. So we're just looking now at how we might present this in a different way. There might be a digital element to this, there might be a remote element to this, but we need to pump some more life into that. And I think you're absolutely right. When school visits, when they have a memorable, extraordinary visit, that's something that then inspires them to drag their parents along at the weekend, or that at least it breaks down that barrier that a museum's not a scary place to visit. It's not full of stuff that you're not going to understand. It's actually got some really cool stuff in it.
There's some really sexy elements to history. When you talk about archaeology and museums like this, it's all very visual. Nice shiny swords in a cabinet. There's something really attractive about that, because I know it's very important. It is very important to get your nose into a book and learn about these things, right? Because that's where it's at. But when you can see it, and you can almost touch it. You definitely smell it, because I was talking about the smell of the wood in that main hall. It's just an amazing place to be. So, there is something really good to be said. I mean, how are you keeping things fresh, though, for people that have been here before, changing exhibits? Do you bring things in? Do you send things away? I mean, how does that work?
No, in an ideal world, we'd have an exhibition space that had maybe 2/3 of the stuff was there almost all the time, with the capacity to change out some of the other displays on an annual basis. So there's always something new. We'd also have room for temporary exhibitions that we'd bring in for a few months at a time. But there's no elbow room at the moment. There's not an inch of space that we haven't already used. So. Yeah, in an ideal world, that's exactly what we do.
Locals, will you please stop giving us stuff?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, we had a gent turn up this morning with some bits that I had to turn him away. We never want to appear ungrateful, and especially when people say, "Well, if you don't take it, it's going in the nearest bin." It's very sad, but we the more we take, the more items that we take, the more we have to care for. And if some of those items are in a poor state, the better items will suffer because we won't have time to keep an eye on those.
Of course, yeah.
We do have quite strict collection policies, and there's not very much we'll take, but things like medals and pay books and photographs and letters, stuff that paints a picture about a human, is the most valuable stuff that we can get. And once we've worked out how best we can display this, that's something that, as a museum, I would be really privileged to be able to share with our visitors. They could come and find out the entire life story of a human being, someone like us, who just happened to live 80 years ago and serve His Majesty's Army at the time. So we're very close to that, and we've got the resources there. Like I said, the rich collections, it's all there to be tapped. It's just a case of how we display them in the future. We're very grateful rent-free tenants of Shropshire Council here in the castle. We've had a lease for a number of years, but that expires in 2027, which is not a long way away. And if the council decided they wanted to do something else with the building, we'd have to find somewhere else to go. So it's impossible for us right now to get any funding, any capital input.
Oh, this is heartbreaking. Wow.
Well, we keep our fingers crossed. We're very optimistic about our future, wherever that might be. But it does have an impact on how we plan financially. We can't invest any of our savings or anybody else's money, for that matter, in costly redisplays here if we don't know it's going to be here in 5.5 years' time. And nobody else, no other fund-making, grant-making organisations, lottery or otherwise, are going to fund.
I mean, it seems like the ideal place for a military museum, though, isn't it? A castle.
I'm really pleased to hear you say that. Absolutely. Where else would you expect to find soldiers? It seems perfect to us. But having said that, as a building of its age, I mean, we're sat in one of the original Robert Adam rooms at the moment, which is stunning in itself. But the rest of the age of the building and all of the limitations on what you can do with a listed building and how much you can drill into walls or re-carpet floors or anything like that, it can be restrictive. Access isn't what we need it to be, really. The toilets aren't particularly comfy. But we work with what we've got, and we're trying to do a lot more online. Lauren has done an incredible job of bringing our collections to our public and making the timelines of all of our regiments much more available to our virtual visitors. And we found that does drive visits. Our visitor numbers are about 85-90% of what they were in 2019, and that's a brilliant achievement. And I think that's testament to how we've adapted to, firstly, not having an audience for such a long time, to suddenly building and maintaining a virtual audience, and then bringing people back in, and then people are still interested and they're still invested and they are still thankfully putting money in the donations box. So we know that people are having a great experience, and I'm really pleased about that. I mean, you could so easily have ruined everyone's day out by putting too many COVID safe measures in place, but I think we got it just right, and I'd like to think that was purely judgment and experience, but we were all blind going into this, so I think a fair bit of luck has played its part in that too.
I think it's very exciting to talk about how technology can sort of help preserve history, because you get the numbers in for the doors, it helps keep the place here, it generates interest. Well, there's not going to be there's not going to be much. Where are we going to see the swords and stuff? Where are we going to see that? We need to see this sort of thing. And it's because like Lauren coming in and making everything virtual online, and looking at these bright, interesting new ideas. I mean, okay, so for example, at the food festival, this is going to sound really great, but it's important. At the food festival, I was learning about how technology has been used with agriculture. They've got these remote control cars that go up and down crops, and they can scan the fields and let the farmers know if there's a problem. They are sheep herding with drones and things. So you're taking this age-old thing of farming. They use these super massive machinery. I know, but like farming with modern day technology. Now we're using a historical building museum with technology. It's just a really interesting thing, isn't it?
Well, another thing we did when I first came in is we needed to update the old website. We called it the old website. You won't find it now, sadly. It was of its time, let's put it that way. So I asked a locally recommended team to consider doing a website for us, and they quite bluntly told me they're not going to build me a website. They're going to build me a database that's accessible by website visitors, but it will look a bit like a website. So after reminding them how the whole client thing works and how it's us that tells them what we want.
It's going to be eye-catching, guys.
But the basis of it is that the whole website is built on a platform that accesses directly into our collections database, which, sorry to sound nerdy, that's how we store every last bit of information about every single piece of collection or every item that we have. So to have a plug-and-play way of making that available to our audience, our virtual audience, is incredible. Of course, it's meant that we had to do an awful lot of work of getting images and auditing information and making sure everything's checked before we make it available. And we don't reveal every last detail of the objects, like how much we bought them for in 1987 or who gave them to us. Sensitive stuff like that stays off. But there's really good evidence that when people can access that level of information online, it doesn't detract or deter them from physically visiting. In fact, it does the opposite. It prompts a visit. They've found out about this item. They now want to see it in the flesh. And that, to me, is incredibly heartening. So we've got this great website, which is a work in progress still. We're still adding bits to it and still linking from it to people and to objects and to records and to stories. And I think that's a really good way into what we're doing. But we're now looking at how we can preserve memories of our veterans digitally as well. And we're looking at getting some veterans in very soon, actually, for a top secret upcoming project, unless you've talked about it. It's not top secret. It's just, we're working on a project at the moment that's got some really unexpected outcomes, very positive unexpected outcomes. And so we're looking at some really good futures here for the museum serving as a bit of a hub for veterans to come and talk and natter and share stories and hopefully to reunite with people they've served with after the Second World War.
I'd love to help you with that if we can.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, that would be absolutely amazing. I think every new step we take from a digital perspective, to begin with, it sounds scary, and when you've been doing it for 6 months, you become a bit of an advocate. And oh no, we've been doing podcasts for weeks now.
Got the Shrewsbury Biscuit here. What are you about?
We'd also, we'd looked at near field technology, so things like QR codes and everything else. But being in a building with 2 meter thick sandstone walls plays havoc with Wi-Fi. So there's a few bits of technology we'd need to add for that.
What's the NFT? Is NFT the where you pay with your phone?
Yes.
Apparently, I was speaking to Andy McEwen. Shout out to Andy McEwen. What's up? He was saying that we had this idea of taking a story or a podcast or something and setting a trail through the town. So you go and you touch your phone, you get like 2 minutes of the story. It tells you where to go next. Do the same. You end up going through town. You could do something similar here. They're stickers, literally stickers. No wires, no Wi-Fi, nothing like that.
Yeah.
NFC, that's it.
I think one of the big plans we have for a redisplay would be to display the medals all on one wall. 3,600 medals, nearly 1,000 service personnel, and lots of them now are in drawers. So you can find them if you know what you're looking for. You can browse them, but they don't have the impact they would all plastered all over a wall. But alongside that, we'd really like people to be able to take an image of the medal on their phone, and it brings up, through AI, it brings up a nice image of the person, their life story, where they served.
Amazing idea.
So, I think at the moment, the technology is probably there.
It's how you access it.
How we access it. Yeah. I think a lot of this for me is about revealing these stories in stuff we already have, and of course that's easy to say, but when you start putting it together from a workflow point of view, a human has got to sit down and unite that medal record with that human being, with their battalion history, and everything else, and that has to be done physically, and that for 3,600 medals, that's a task in itself. But with the other sort of 13,000 objects in the collection. That's an immense task, absolutely immense. But like I said earlier, in terms of forward motion, the plan is there, the vision is there, the energy and the passion is there. So we're raring to go with a lot of this.
I found when it comes to Shrewsbury, here we goes again. There's something in the water. I always say this. There's something in the Severn. There's got to be, because collaboration is very important to Salopians, Shrewsbury, and Shropshire as well. I've seen it, and I've seen you guys have been working with like Dough and Oil, and because they had the up oil night stuff, and Original Shrewsbury. There's lots of collaborative efforts going on there. Do you work well with others? The museum in town, the university, maybe, archives across the road.
Very closely with all of them. The archives hold some of our collections. They hold all our audio and oral history records. We work very closely with the Town Museum and their team, much more closely in the last year, which is really heartening, really positive. We started working with the Flaxmill Maltings. That was the infantry training centre at the latter part of the war as well. So they've got history up there, and we're just now working on a display that they can have when they open to the public next year. That talks about the plight of the infantrymen who would have been stationed there. And I think we consider the histories here as the sort of the foundation of heritage and culture in the county, and especially in the town. And so it's quite easy for partners, I think, to hang their current status and their current sort of cultural footprint on everything that we have here. It's just a case of making those connections. Yeah, we're very happy to work with other partners. There must be of the big firms, the big family firms in town. There must be people in those firms that have huge, deep, and long-standing connections with our army here in Shropshire, and to make those connections, to bring them closer, I think is another big target of ours.
I think it's something beautiful about, you look at a cenotaph and you see all those names on a cenotaph somewhere, or, you hear on the news, they've sent in 10,000 units and it's the army, or it's the navy, or it's what you're doing is you're breaking it down to you must try and break it down to an individual level. Like one of those 10,000 soldiers has got a wife, has got a kids, he's got a house, he grew up in Shrewsbury, he drank in this pub and he went here, and so, these are individuals. You talk about 3,600 medals. They did some horrendous things for those medals. There's a story behind those things. I think it's very beautiful to want to display that in as much detail as you can, because you can look at all those medals and go, oh, that's nice. But if you could zoom in on your phone and you can have like a holographic picture spinning around, I'm thinking of like I don't know, the Captain America whole thing they have in the MCU, But it's important. It really is important, because these are people's stories. I really like that. I hope if there's anybody that's listening to this that's good with stuff like that can help you out, would you encourage them to get in touch?
Absolutely. Any volunteers that don't get put to sleep by endless data processing and linking records, definitely that. Yeah, we're just. It'd be nice to have a shout out to Georgia, who's one of our long-standing volunteers, who's had her last day this week. She's off to university to do her masters, and we're all in denial that she's actually gone, but she's been really instrumental in getting our database up to speed, and didn't ever seem to shy away from the drudgery of it, because sometimes it can be a bit of a chore. But Georgia, thank you.
Nice. I love this place, and we'll help you as much as we can, because I don't want this place to go. Not that I like the positive thinking, so we'll stick with that. But like, if there's ever anything that the Biscuit can do to help you guys, whether it's a vlog at a special event, or like what you were talking about getting lots of military men around and talking about, I'd love to get some vox pops of that. That'd be amazing. So we'll help you as much as we can. But if someone's listening to this, and if you listen to the Shrewsbury Biscuit and you're local and you haven't come to this museum, please come. But how would you try and persuade someone to come? How would you sell it to them? I
think it's very easy for someone that runs a museum to say there's something for everyone here. But I think every visitor will find something that they didn't expect to find. They'll find something that resonates with them. They'll find something that they think, that's actually surprised me, and I'll be thinking about that for the rest of the week. And they're going to find something that they think, I don't like that, or that made me feel a bit funny. I think having a balance of those in a museum is absolutely critical, and I guarantee everybody that visits us will find those things here. And I think that, if people walk out of this place and back down through the grounds and out the gates thinking, that was brilliant. then my job's done. That's all I need from it, really.
Like a ratio. If out of 12 people we please 3 or 4, we've done our job. Yeah. We'd like to get the 12. But
yes, we'd like to get the 12. There is. I think there's definitely something interesting that everyone can find here.
Amazing.
Just give us. We're ever so grateful for our entire audience and all of our visitors, but just give us that opportunity, give us that chance. If you want to stop and chat, or you want to ask questions, our warders, our team here are amazing fonts of all knowledge. They walk around these collections day in, day out, and they've picked out their favourite pieces, and every single one of them will guide you to their own favourite thing, and it will be different every time.
Mine's the flag from the White House for reasons. Tom Bruno. But that is just so fascinating. That's from a very important, very, very important moment in history. You got that flag from the White House that got burned down. Oh, that's good stuff. Good stuff. Is there something that's come through your doors since you started here that when it came through, angels rang? Oh, the perfect thing that someone's given to you to display.
The
baton is the bit that everyone talks about.
I think the baton's a bit like Marmite, isn't it? Either you come away thinking that was amazing to see, or I don't know how I feel about that. Yeah,
quite. That's definitely one of those.
What's the baton?
So the baton is a ceremonial baton that was presented by Adolf Hitler to his second in command, Grand Admiral Donitz, who was in charge of the submarine fleets. So on Hitler's death, Admiral Donitz became the next Führer, if you like, although not in name. He was the head of the Nazi government, the fledgling Nazi government in Flensburg at the end of the war, and it was the King Shropshire Light Infantry and the Herefords who they fought alongside who captured him and his staff and effectively ended the Nazi regime. As part of that, Jack Churcher, who was one of our number, took the baton as a way of sort of incapacitating his power. And it's ended up here, and I know the Herefords would love to have it in their museum. We've also had requests from the German Admiralty to have it back, among other collectors who had offered us 7-figure sums for it over the years. I'm sure. It is a very precious, one of our most prized items. It tells an incredible story of the closing stages of the Second World War and of the dissolution of the Nazi regime in Germany. But there are little things that I've discovered since I've been here that I absolutely love. There's, along with some medals in a drawer downstairs, there's an aluminium spoon with a big bullet dent in it, and you have to just wonder. It was a soldier that landed on Normandy beaches on D-Day, and you have to wonder how much damage that would have done had it not dented the spoon. So things like that are very powerful for a very ordinary object. But one of the things we discovered in our sort of in tray, if you like, with collection items that are coming into the collection that are in my office, were some photocopied letters from a guy called John Mollo to his brother Boris. And Boris Mollo was a former curator of this museum and a former curator of military museums around the country. John Mollo was a King Shropshire Light Infantry soldier. He did his national service in the Far East. But him and his brother Boris, they were fascinated by military uniforms, the technical and aesthetic elements of militaria. And so John, as an avid artist, would also send back letters home describing his situation and illustrating them with nice little vignettes of life in the army over there. One really funny one that would look like it was him in an army cot, a bed, covered with a mosquito nest with a net with all of these different bugs and creatures attacking him, all annotated with another squadron of mosquitoes head for Private Mollo's sleeping body. And they were just fun, these letters. And I don't know what led me to it. I just looked up on our database John Mollo, and we have a watercolour by him in a case of a soldier of the Shropshire regiments who guarded Napoleon on his when he was interred on St Helena. And it was a really beautifully done watercolour, really accurate, and it was a really good image of its time. We did a bit of digging, and John Mollo had a life outside the army and actually won 2 Oscars for costume design. The first of those Oscars he won for designing almost all the costumes for Star Wars. Darth Vader, Stormtroopers. Have you already talked about this?
Very briefly. Very briefly. Yeah, but you're telling a much better story.
That was definitely one of those discoveries where you just think. So the guy that designed Darth Vader and all the Stormtroopers and everything else was a Shropshire soldier, was in the King Shropshire Light Infantry, designed stuff for our museum, knew of us, knew of this.
Wrote a hell of a letter.
Exactly, wrote a brilliant letter. It was a great little artist. And to have that sort of connection means that you can look outside what we consider to be army stuff and military collections to the types of people that came through soldiering and through our army and what they went on to achieve. His second Oscar was for Gandhi, which I struggled to think how much he was really pushing himself in terms of costume design for that. But he got 2 Oscars.
Wow. Bedsheet.
Yeah, exactly, another bedsheet. So yeah, there's little bits like that you come across, and whilst your heart doesn't exactly stop, you certainly think, wow, that's really juicy, that's really interesting, that's another part of it. And let's face it, I mean, every single item we have here is important in one way or another, but not every single item is that interesting or that relevant to absolutely everybody. There's bound to be one of our visitors that wants to come in and see a specific button from a specific year. That's the one thing they came to see. Most of our visitors will lap it all up and take it all in more holistically. So having little items where you can draw people's attention to, let me show you this watercolour, let me tell you about this man, or let me tell you the story about how that baton came to be in our collection, or let me show you this dented spoon. Being able to do that, I mean, we're really proud to be able to do that. And
have you got tours that go on here?
We have informal tours. I mean, some of our warders will grab you as you're walking up the front steps and say, let me show you something special.
Yeah.
And I think that's great because visitors feel really well treated and looked after, and they think that's something that sticks in their memory. And that's a really good starting point for the people who are visiting us, who are just maybe a bit curious about what we are and what we do. We do after hours tours, director-led tours, maybe Lauren-led tours soon as well.
Maybe.
And there might be highlights of what they are, but it gives an overview of the incredible sacrifice that our soldiers and our army have made over the years. And in effect, what they've done is they've bought us our todays. And I don't think people should ever forget that.
And I think as well, what you got to realise is when you come to this museum as well, you're getting a 2 for 1 really, because you're seeing this amazing collection, and you're also in the fascinating castle where you can see the history. I mean, like, if you're wondering, oh, well, maybe I can spend a whole day here. Yes, you can, because you can look at the museum. And I produced some audio that Nigel Baker did here. It was part of the So Stories. So go to the original Shrewsbury website and you'll be able to find them. And he did a complete tour around here, and he'll tell you about certain parts of the wall and all around the castle, and there's like tunnels. He'll show you where the tunnels go, and so so they're very interesting. So spend the day here, bring a picnic, go around the regimental museum, spend half your day there, have your food, and then do the tour with Nigel Baker on your phone. What a great day out.
It's perfect, yeah.
It is the perfect day. It really is. Well, my battery is on 1 bar. I'm sure it's going to embarrass me in a second, but it's going out. But we better sort of round this up. But, thank you so much for accommodating me today. Honestly, it's been really nice to come here and speak to you guys. And because I think what you're doing is very important. History is... It's you've just got to keep banging that door. It's so important to remember where you came from, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, it's been a privilege having you here, and take you up on your offer of helping us.
Yes, any help you need from us, we will absolutely be here for you, because I'm very passionate about this. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Listeners, before I go on, tell you about our website, which is the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast.co.uk. This episode will go out after Pod Aid. So if you joined in for Pod Aid, if you donated, if you enjoyed the content we made, thank you very much for your support. If you didn't, we'll have words later. But our website is made for us by our friends at Web Orchard, so you can catch all of our audio. If you're not too keen on using Spotify or Podbean or any other podcast apps, you can listen to our audio directly from our website. It's fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us, guys, and we'll catch you next time.